Oh, g'day everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by CrowCast. Of course, round 23 is done and dusted, and I'm not going to say that the Crow season is done and dusted, but we certainly didn't do ourselves any favours going down to the Dockers. So obviously that's what me and Big Man are going to get into tonight, and I will welcome the Big Man. How are you, sir?
Good, thanks, boss. Well, not that great. That'd be a lie, but it was sort of the expected result. I think. I know you had some high hopes, and at some stage in that game, I thought, "Oh shit, you might be onto something here," but they were just too good in the end, and our flaws just keep showing themselves, unfortunately, particularly against the good teams.
Yeah. Before we crack into it, just a word of thanks to everyone who's joined us in the Discord chat. A fantastic community, of course, filing in as usual on a Sunday night, and also those joining us on YouTube as well. Thank you very much for joining us. Pardon me, a little bit croaky tonight, so excuse my occasional coughing. Don't forget, Big Man, we're brought to everyone by the good people at Next Body Corporate Services, the up-and-coming strata and community title management company in South Australia. One flat fee, no commissions, and prompt personal service. Big Man, you can't really go wrong with that mob.
They say they're the best, mate.
Yeah. One day I'll meet who they are, but no, they're very good. They're very good. Look, just before we get into it too, just a quick report. Obviously, I attended Macca's wife Rita's funeral on Thursday. It was a beautiful service, and lots of people there, and many stories, and it was a real celebration of her life. And Macca did incredibly well, and I caught up with him briefly afterwards, and he was hanging in there nicely and assured me that he will be back on Tuesday night. So he really appreciated the flowers and the card that we sent through. And I must send a special thanks to everyone who contributed. And look, not even contributed, everyone who sent words of condolences to Macca. I know he really appreciated it. And there's a little bit of coin left over, and I think, Big Man, the thing that Macca's going to want more than anything else over the next few weeks is a bit of company. So I reckon I might just spend that money taking him out to tea or something like that, and giving him a bit of company. So all played well on that one.
Yeah, I was really impressed by the way in which the CrowCast community got around Macca on Tuesday night with the donations and just the beautiful words that was said.
Just incredible.
And, there's only so much you can do, but that was a great effort from everyone involved. And I hope the great man himself is doing all right. So and well done on you for going to the funeral and everything. It's a great showing from you. So Thanks to everyone involved that got around Macca, because he needed it, and you all did a great job.
100%. It was a community effort, and I know he was really touched by all the words of support that were thrown his way. And when I spoke to him on Saturday, when was it? Friday, I think. I spoke to him on Friday before the game. He was still up and about with his footy, so he'll be back on Tuesday night, he reckons. So all things considered, Brandy sends his regards. He's having a terrible time in Vietnam. Just seeing the sights and eating the food and all that sort of stuff.
I heard the beer's $3 now, so
I know,
pretty rough.
I know, it's shocking, right? Oh my God, Jad, thank you very much. Jad putting in a beautiful donation there. Thanks, mate. Macca's dinner is on me. Well, he's just upgraded from fish and chips to, maybe a steak now.
Good stuff.
Mate, you're
That's
a legend.
awesome.
Thanks, Jad. All right. Before we talk about the Crows match, why don't we just real quick just avail ourselves of the goings on the weekend? Because I'll tell you what, it was a pretty interesting sort of a round, big man, and a couple of really interesting results. St Kilda getting up 14-10 over Richmond to 6-9. Geelong fighting off North. Geez, I thought North were going to get up there. 19-11, 125 to North 17-8, 110. Brisbane doing the job on Gold Coast 14-11 to 6-17. Hawthorn and Collingwood. Now that's their second draw of the season. Don't think that's ever happened. The same two teams drawing twice in a season.
Not in the same season, no.
No. Melbourne shellacking Port 2012 to 8-8. The Giants doing what they needed to do. Unfortunately, they're out though, 16-15 to 7-15 over West Coast. And the second draw, I think it's the first time since 1977 we've had two draws in a round. Bulldogs and Carlton 12-10, 82 apiece, and Bully's probably bottling that, to be honest. And Sydney getting up in the last by 6 lazy goals, 17-10 over Essendon, 11-10. So we look at the ladder now, and it's not a good reading for us, really. Fremantle streaking away, 19 wins. Sydney cementing second spot with 17 wins. Brisbane shifting up to third and just placing themselves nicely. One off the fence and one back, 15 wins. Hawthorn on 14, but 2 draws and better percentage in fourth, and then Melbourne in fifth on 15 wins. Geelong in 6 on 14. Adelaide behind them by 5% on 14 wins in seventh and wildcard. Collingwood in 8th on 12th. The Bulldogs in 9th on 12. Carlton so far in by the skin of their pants, and they can't be kicked out now. So we are now set in terms of the top 10 with a round to go. Carlton on 46 points, St Kilda and the Giants were the only contenders, and whilst they both won, they are now out of the picture. So that means that we're going to have a wild card round, mate. So what do you think of that?
Oh, it's great.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. I mean, look, it is still technically yes, it's technically a final, but also in normal situation, when you finish seventh, we would have been playing an away elimination final. So, yeah, not where we want to be. It's better than nothing, but it's disappointing given that we're around the mark to finish, top 4 or 5 or even 6. I think as far as what 2 weeks ago. So, we did ourselves. You make your own luck. Unfortunately, not much luck went our way in terms of other results this weekend, which tends to be the case when you rely on others to help you out. That's right. We know what that's like. I'm just thinking 2008 with St Kilda and Essendon. Yeah. But yeah, look, it's not the end of the world. Obviously we get at least that first wild card's going to be a home game, and I mean, you never know exactly how it's going to turn out, but it looks like it's going to be likely be Carlton, but it could also be the Bulldogs still if if Carlton get over Freo. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, no, I don't think Carlton will get over Freo, but you never know. Freo might rest half their city and give Carlton a shot.
Look, I will say, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of talk about, you'd rather play the Bulldogs rather than Carlton, because obviously Carlton are coming with a bit of steam at the moment. But I think we've all watched enough footy now to know that it doesn't really matter who you play. Sometimes the one you think you want to play is actually the team that surprises you and ends up getting the win. So, and maybe Carlton at some point are going to hit the brick wall, I guess, because they've come from so far back and it's hard to keep going. So, I mean, at the end of the day, as long as we get a win in that first final or wild card,
it's not a final. Do not call it a final. It is not a final.
Well, no, I'm just saying it would be. It would have been a final for us in normal situation. But anyway, um,
Mm.
but yeah, look, we got to get past that first stage, mate, and then that's a long way away though. So let's not worry about that just for now.
But you know what's going to happen. We're going to be playing Carlton, and they're going to announce Josh Fraser's appointment during the week, and and they'll all be up and about playing for the new coach. Yeah, look, okay. Look, before we get into the game, don't forget everyone in Discord. It is live and interactive, so if you would like to have your say, and people have been a little bit lately, which is great, stick your hand up in Discord on stage there, and I will get you in. And on YouTube, if you would like your comment read out and discussed, you can hit a super chat, and we'll certainly do that. Now, I mean, the simple fact is, mate, that there are a couple of key games that we dropped, and at the end of the day, that's what cost us, isn't it? The Carlton game, the Collingwood game and the Port game. Win those two, and we're firmly entrenched, aren't we?
Yeah. I'll also be curious to see what Melbourne do if they get if they lose to the Bulldogs. Then we still have a chance to finish in the top 6, provided we do the job ourselves and beat the Giants. And I suppose one positive as well is that we'll know beforehand.
Yeah.
And not to mention the Giants now had nothing to play for because they're actually officially out of the running. Which is ironic because this whole wildcard thing was to extend, obviously
exactly
the branch to other clubs and to give them more motivation at the end of the year. And it's ended up being a closed shop with a round to go, which is
as usual. The AFL's attempt to contrive an outcome has fallen flat.
Yeah,
never mind.
They're pretty good. They're pretty good at that, mate.
Masters. I'll tell you what, they had a fair crack at trying to contrive an outcome with Van Rooyen as well. For those who don't know, Van Rooyen from Melbourne, a similar action to the one that got Fogarty 3 weeks, and I'll tell you what, the media pundits were in full swing trying to downplay that, but he has been offered 3 matches, according to reports this afternoon, so it'll be interesting to see whether that gets upheld. I'm sure they'll appeal it.
Yeah, your boy Johnny Ralph was pushing. He's pushing already for a downgrade.
Oh yeah, of course. I can't wait to get on Twitter and resume my conversation with him about that, because he was certainly the exact opposite about Darcy.
No, I wonder if Aaron was it Aaron? No, Josh Barnes. He's going to call it an act of thuggery too, like he did Fogarty's tackle.
Yeah, that's right.
So I mean, look, I'm pleasantly surprised that he got the 3. Obviously, we have to wait and see what happens from here because I'm sure they'll challenge. They'll definitely challenge, and the media will go into bat for him. So let's wait and see.
100%.
But I mean, yes, they're different actions, but they're very similar in the sense of accidental things gone horribly wrong. And I think there was enough there to suggest that it was at least worthy of the same suspension as Fog. So so good, mate.
What was the phrasing they were using? Like some sort of
force?
Something about. Oh, I can't remember the phrasing. Something that basically said, it didn't look like he was trying to hit him or something or other. I don't know. They could downgrade on the basis of
observable force.
Observable force. That's it. Yeah, that's the one.
That's a new one. That's a new one, mate.
Yeah, haven't heard that one. Oh God, what a competition this is.
It's such a joke, mate.
It's
a clown comp.
Yeah. It's World Championship Wrestling.
Oh, and
World Wrestling Federation.
I saw. I don't know if anyone was watching the spectacular Richmond versus Sydney St Kilda game on Saturday, but there was an incident where Ralph Smith pushed who was it, Angus Hasty, in a marking contest.
Yep.
Into Taru, I think it was.
Yep.
And it put Hasty down for a bit, and I thought that was very similar to when
Yeah,
Tex gave the shove on Connor O'Sullivan, but
correct.
yeah, nothing to see here once again. So that rule's just gone out the window again. It was
Yeah.
only for Tex, and that's it.
I think they were confused which name to put it under because he's got so many, that bloke. All right, let's get on to our game. Fremantle 16-16, 1-1-2 in the end, just far too strong for Adelaide, 13-10, 88. For Fremantle, Sarong had 29, Bolton 27, Brayshaw 27. For Adelaide, Isaac just racking up the Brownlow votes, 39. Geordie 27 and Rory led with 22 of the worst touches you'll ever see in your life. Goal scorers, Amos 5, Dudley 3, Sarong 2 for Adelaide, Cook 2, Taylor 2, Fogarty 2. Mate, my first impression was that we were so entrenched in a style of play during the course of this season that when the call was for fast, aggressive football, we haven't trained it enough to be composed under pressure in executing that style of play.
Yeah, I think you train habits, elite habits, and that's what you fall back on when you are faced with immense pressure. And it's just clearly something we haven't trained well enough. Our handballs are only there to, essentially make the ball someone else's problem, and it usually goes terribly wrong, and we end up turning the ball over or getting ourselves into more trouble. So we always need like a rewiring of the players, I think, and I don't think that's going to happen this year, which is a real shame. But the game's changed, and we haven't changed along with it. I've no doubt we've got the personnel to play a better brand of footy. It's just these things aren't fixed overnight, and the coaching staff need to look at where they went horribly wrong in the preseason. Because I did say back in the summer that we were playing a kick mark game, and quite a conservative game. I even said talked about how like the corridor was sectioned off. So you get what you're given, what you're trained with, I suppose, and I mean, I think we're doing a good job if that's the intent. But the problem is it doesn't really work, does it?
Well, it doesn't. And the thing about it is it's not only the execution under pressure that we were found wanting in when the heat was on, but when you haven't trained a game like that, a style like that, it's also positioning, and we don't put ourselves in the right positions for the receive in those circumstances. We're often too close to the player with the ball. We're flat-footed. All sorts of things. We're just not configured correctly for that kind of football. It relies on individual brilliance and a bit of luck and a bit of chaos. And you could just see that you're right, it's not talent. We have the capability to do it. But when you've trained a certain way for a whole season and pre-season, and all of a sudden you're called upon to play a different way, I mean, it's a big ask against the best team of the comp.
Oh yeah. I mean, to be honest, the way we played, that probably would have got the job done against quite a number of teams. Much better effort than it was against Richmond, put it that way. But you could see the class difference, the way in which they move the footy, they extract by hand, they have overlap, they release to running players, even out of stoppage, so well. Bolton in particular, he was just always on the move, and obviously Sarong killed us in there too. So you can see the class difference, particularly in the middle of the ground. We've got some other issues too with our back setup, but look, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't horrible, but we're just not playing particularly great footy, and you can see the clubs that are at the moment, and we're just not one of them.
I thought the effort and the endeavour was there from the majority of players. I felt like, I mean, their pressure rating was through the roof, but ours wasn't terrible either. So we were, but there were just some key things that we did. We allowed them too much territory coming out of the back half. We didn't cover off their switches at all well. and they were able to get quite deep with their transition from D50 without a lot of opposition, and then we'd have to try and shut it down across the 50 arc there, across half back. And I just, again, it's not as if Optus Oval is like 300 metres wider than Adelaide Oval. It just seemed to me that we weren't configured correctly. They were able to get overlap all the time down that outer wing, and we just couldn't cover it up. And the other thing was that the way that Longmuir sets up his forward line is really smart, because when they had a bit of dominance through the middle, all their small forwards and medium forwards, they push up and they just leave so much room for their keys to lead into. And by dragging our players away, there was no one to intercept or cut off or anything like that. They just had a red carpet through to their forward line, and at no stage did we try to come up with a way to block off those avenues, because they were just leading straight at the ball carrier, and the lane in front of them was right there.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I would have liked to have seen us also maybe clamp down on one of Bolton or Sarong. They were both hurting us in different ways.
God, yeah.
Sarong with the coalface, and Bolton with just the inside 50 and the run he provided. Yeah. Neither Berry or Peatling were having good games. So I would have
talk
thought,
to you about that in a minute.
If we needed to at least put one of them on, because they weren't winning the ball themselves, so might as well put them on one of those two. And look, would it have made the 24-point difference? Probably not, but it would have helped a lot, I reckon, because those two in particular really stood out to me.
Yeah. Nixie did make some moves. We compressed the ground a bit after quarter time, or after realising that we weren't going to win in a shootout. We compressed it up a bit and made it a little bit slower, but they were still able to overlap on us all the time. But I felt like our matchups down back were all wrong. I really we're going to lose Jordan Butts and Nick Murray in the off season. Nick Murray hasn't been in great form, but in form, those two players, in my opinion, are still 1 and 2 in our defence. And Borlase has had a fantastic year, but it doesn't offer the same as Jordan Butts. And I think we've seen Josh Worrell struggle as a consequence. Max Michaelani's had to play tall far too often this year. The best matchup for Michaelani would have been Dudley on the weekend, but unfortunately he was forced to play tall, which isn't his go, really. He's not strong enough for that. And I just feel like we're going to end up with probably the worst combination of all possibilities in our defence next season by losing Butts and Murray, because we'll be forced to play Borlase and Keane. Some talk of Charlie Ballard coming down, but that's yet to be seen, of course. But as it stands, I feel like we were really exposed with our keys down back and just our matchups.
Yeah, well, firstly, on Muzz, we hold the whipping hand there. So if the talk of a future first is on the table from North, you definitely have to consider it. As long as we've got someone to come in from another club to fill the gap there, because you can't lose both Butts and Murray and not replace at least one of them. But at the end of the day, we can still hold Murray if clubs aren't offering enough. Butts, I think I agree. I think he's almost certainly gone. So
I can't see how he stays.
No. Well, he's a free agent, so it's up to him, and he's not getting a regular gig. And I don't even know what's. We still don't know what that injury is, and it's been 2 weeks now, but that's all right. But as for the current setup, I think the main problem here is that we've got 2 of the 3 tools are most suited to being interceptors. Keane himself is almost a small defender in a way, because he can't defend the big guys. But he's such a good ball user, so you want the ball in his hands. But as an actual defender, he's getting whipped most weeks now. And Worrell's lost his ability to defend this year. So it's really putting us in a tricky place. I noticed Keane was on Jai Amos a lot on the weekend.
Yep.
I didn't think that was a great matchup. I would have thought
No.
Tracy's not a great matchup either. I probably would have gone with Voss. But at the end of the day, I think he's got to lift his game too. He's not defending well enough. And I know he had a really bad injury in the summer. So I'll give him a little bit of slack. But yeah, he needs to really improve in that area because he can't just be the great distributor. He's also actually got to be a really good defender if we're going to do anything going forward. Because Paule's, you're right, he's had a good year, and I thought for about a half he was going quite well with Tracy. You know, he's getting his spoils in and everything, but it just became too much, particularly once Freo took over the game and the inside 50 count just became a lot to handle.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got some issues there. And I know Butsy would fix that, but a bit. But yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to Worrell and Keane have to remember how to defend, particularly Keane.
Well, and the other thing Mark needs to do is decide whether he wants to be an AFL footballer or an AFL umpire, because I am sick to death of him remonstrating with umpires, and he did it to such a degree on the weekend, on Friday night, that he even stopped for a free rather than just playing to the whistle, and as a consequence, it resulted in a turnover. And I don't know whether it's the Irish in him or whatever, but someone's got to get into his head and say, stop worrying about what's going on, what the umpire's doing. You just play the ball, rather than remonstrating all the time, because it's really giving me the shits.
Yeah, he's a bit all over the shop at the moment. He's had more bad games than good since coming back into the team. I know he had that really good first game back, and
yeah,
I really do like the way he uses the ball. He spots up options and he takes risks that none of our other defenders do, apart from maybe Hall Gahan. And I like his kick-ins. He's one of the few guys we have that takes short kick-ins instead of just going long to the flank. So he's a valuable asset. But his actual defensive stuff and his attitude in games is not at the level at the moment.
No. But Newman makes a good point too. It's not as if the umpires could understand a word he's saying anyway. Look, you know my thoughts on Mark Keane. I don't think he's a key defender. I actually think he's more of a running player. He's maybe an intercept defender who can distribute. And again, I think that's why the triple threat of Butts, Murray and Keane worked really well, because it allowed Worrell to also play a lesser defender and play more of an intercept or third man up role. Freed up Max as well. I'm really disappointed that those two boys, and I know what you're saying about Murray is true, but all reports North are going to offer him 5 years, and we might decide that the pick that we're going to get for Nick is worth the downgrade down back. But I'm just really disappointed because our defence has been such a foundation for our team for so long, and now we're breaking the band up, and we're ending up with probably the worst version of it that we could possibly end up with.
I think the standout to me is the lack of height. Keane's a 192, Borlase is 192.
Yeah.
And Worrell's 193, and he plays the shortest out of them all properly.
Yeah.
So that is an issue, and it seems like full forwards and whatnot are just becoming taller and taller each year. So if we do lose Butts and Murray, we need to use this as an opportunity to recruit a really tall backman if possible, if there's one out there. Even if they're not much of an offensive player, if they can do the job defensively, that's probably something we need to look at. And it is a shame because that's probably been one area of our list we haven't had to address in a while. And it looks like it might become an issue now. But as I said, whoever goes after Murray, which looks like North, they have to pay up. Otherwise, we can just keep him. He can complain, but we can still keep him for 2 more years.
Yeah. And we might have to. We also really missed Miller. I thought our distribution off halfback was pretty average. The only bloke that seemed to be doing well is Ranks, who was playing more off halfback than anything else. Nankervis wasn't able to get enough space to use his foot skills. A little bit of Braden Cook, but more often than not, it was Ranks coming out of the back half that was trying to set us up. And Hugo Hawkhan has had a very good introduction to AFL, but it's asking a terribly big amount of a young lad, 10 games into his career, to be the main distributor out of halfback. And again, that's what I remember saying to you last week. Should we try Hinge? And the reason was twofold. First of all, to give us a bit of a third man up guy, because Hinge is not bad in the air. But second of all, to give us a second outlet coming out of defence. And I just felt like we were one short with our outlets coming out of the back half.
Oh yeah, I mean, Wayne he's been such a good player for us this year with his run and his ability to spot up targets, and that pure efficiency that he brings. Obviously we've lacked that in the last few weeks. Every club has injuries though, so you need to learn how to cover them. We don't have it as bad as some other teams at the moment in terms of star players out. So we can't be that reliant on Wayne. We need others to bridge the gap there. Hugo had an interesting game. I didn't like his first half at all, but he actually closed out the game pretty well. His kicking suddenly tightened up, and he was making really good decisions, and his ball usage was a lot better. So you can see the play we want him to be and what he could offer. But there's a few other rough edges. He's obviously not great defensively, and occasionally he can turn it over. But I think he's showing enough to see why we need to persist with him, because he has that sort of that energy and that want to break the lines and run and carry. And I think that's hopefully with the new game style next year, he'll really flourish with that sort of role.
Yeah. Of course, we were very, very fortunate to have a two-time All-Australian, very experienced defender down there to help out. And I'm gonna do the burn now, because I don't want to waste 20 minutes when we're going through players. Rory Laird has had the worst 2-3 weeks of football of somebody of his experience that I've ever seen. And it's not only the mistakes that he made, but it was just he had 22 touches. I can't recall more than 2 or 3 that were of any benefit to the side. And it's self-evident. It's not as if I'm a lone voice here. I don't think that his form prior to him coming back from injury warranted coming straight back in. Do you know that Rory Laird has never played a game of SANFL football since being picked in the ones?
So are we sure he didn't get dropped in 2000? Because I know, did he get injured or dropped in 2014? Am I remembering wrong?
Don't know, but if we have to go back that far, that's an indictment anyway.
Yeah, that would be the last time it would have ever happened, even if it did. So you're right, I guess.
And I actually think that there's a couple of things that really are signature Adelaide Crows, and Rory's selection is one of them. And we dropped a young lad. All right, it would have only been his 3rd game, but Oscar Ryan came in and did nothing wrong at all. Showed a little bit of dash, showed great poise, toughness, and through no fault of his own form was omitted. And as a consequence, the drive that we may have got from Oscar, even if it was only a little bit, would have been far more than what we got from Rory Laird. And I just, if there's selection integrity, I don't see how we can take Rory Laird into a final series. I know we will, but I don't see how that's possible unless there's unwritten laws in Adelaide's selection committee.
Yeah, I didn't agree with the selection to begin with. Ryan, as you said, great first game, decent enough second game too, and certainly better than Laird's game against Richmond was.
Yeah.
They might have been thinking with no Tex and no A and B and Miller that we didn't have enough, like I said, quote unquote leadership back there. That's the only.
Yeah.
But I don't think they need that reason. I think they just pick him because it's Laird.
Yeah.
And we know that how much Nixie loves him, but I can't see how Nixie doesn't get frustrated. Like it must be like, does he not see what we see? Like the same with Murphy in previous years. Like these players that continually make the same mistakes. Actually, I think Laird was better this game than he was against Richmond, but that's still not a great endorsement. And some of his turnovers are pretty costly. Once again, you shouldn't be getting that from a 33-year-old. They're there to steady the ship. The problem is Laird, what his interpretation of steady means just to park the bus and wait, kick long, high up in the air, well, up long, it's 40 meters at most, but it just doesn't work. And it was a real harsh, thing to do to Ryan, who deserved another gig. I just think it was the wrong message, and it was the wrong way to go about it. And unfortunately, I don't see them changing their mind. But if Laird wasn't there and Ryan played, we would not have been any worse off. In fact, we probably would have been slightly better off. So, and once you get to that point, you got to make the harsh calls.
Yeah.
Why aren't we willing to make the harsh call on this? Like, I'm certain the other best clubs around would do it.
Yeah.
You can only carry a guy for so long. Look, Letty, great career. Multiple best and fairest all Australian. You don't fluke that stuff. He was a genuinely good halfback flanker.
Correct. That was a long time ago.
And also, his move to midfield was really good for us. But the game, it gets everyone. The game has moved past him, and he hasn't improved his own game. He's gone backwards, and it's frustrating to watch it week in, week out, and he constantly gets selected.
Yeah, that's right. Someone of his experience should be a Luke Hodge down the back. I'm not saying he's as good a player as Luke, but that kind of player, Dane Zorko, that kind of thing. But he's an absolute liability, and if there was an award for metres gained vertically this season, he would win it in a canter. Because he just can't get any separation.
Look at the difference. Like, it's amazing. Like, Zorko's 3-4 years older, and but he's quick. He's a beautiful kick, and he runs and drives the footy.
He also provides leadership.
Yeah, and a bit of aggro as well, and
bit of grunt.
All that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's basically, apart from the height, that's the only thing they got in common. The rest they're so different, and that's why they persist with Zorko, because he offers so many things to them. Whereas Laird's actually, he's not the only one that's out of form, but he's holding us back.
Yeah, no, look, Brisbane are a better team when Zorko's playing and he's up and about. No, and just on that, do you think we lost anything by not having Alex Neil-Bullen in the side this week?
Nixie would have said leadership as well.
Yeah,
but no, I don't think. It didn't seem to me like we really did. Like, I know he's that connecting sort of player, but
look at the game that Milk had.
I didn't notice it.
But you can't tell me that Milk wasn't in the game more because A and B wasn't on the park.
Potentially. I mean, Milk did what he usually does. He just hit the scoreboard too. That was the big difference to
this week. And he did a bit more of it too. I felt like he was involved more often.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. The other one that I want to talk about is Tex. Now, I need someone with a higher IQ than me to explain why we decide to play Tex against the two worst teams in the competition, and then in probably the most important minor round game of the year, during the week that he announces his retirement to great fanfare, and everyone's up and about that, we decide to rest him, ostensibly because we need Tex fit for the finals, Matthew Nix's words. So he does see Tex as an important player in the finals, but apparently this game wasn't important enough. But then we take him over because apparently Matthew Nix doesn't have enough assistant coaches, and Tex was really valuable in that space, quote unquote, Matthew Nix. And then on top of that, we go back to this situation with Toby Murray because we're so shit scared of Jackson and Cox, and we have ostensibly a number 1 pick, a number 2 pick up forward who is fantastic as a second ruck, who didn't see the ball for large parts of the game. And Toby Murray has 50% time on ground, and therefore we're essentially one short on the bench in a game that's going to be a running game. And I could say that there were 3 periods of the game where Fremantle scored on us, and each of those periods coincided with Toby Murray being on the ground. Please explain to me, big man, because you're a smarter man than me. You're a smarter man than me. I just can't work out the 4D chess. And JT Groove, I'll get to you in a sec, mate. Thanks. What's going on with that? Like, the whole thing is back to front, in my opinion.
I can't. I can't explain. It's too weird, man. There's so many levels to this. There's 1, taking Tex over.
Yep.
2, not playing Tex.
Yep.
And then 3, playing Toby Murray.
I'm back to that well again.
It's just, I didn't think Archie Ludovic was ready for that sort of environment, that opposition either. But maybe we just say, okay, we're going short.
Done it before to good effect.
No offense to Ibis, but the way he's played in his recent games, it wasn't just Friday night. It's the last few he's played at AFL level as well. He's not getting the job done. He's almost like having one less player out there, and the time on ground would sort of go, would support that as well. Like, it was very low, so
50%, which is more than he should have been on the ground.
Just feels like another strain. Like, you're right. Mix is obsessed with this structure, but if you don't have the cattle, like, I'd love to have a ruck forward who can let Thilthorpe stay in the ruck, in the full forward line if he wants, but the same guy's going to kick goals and have a presence. But that's not what Toby Murray is at the moment.
No,
he's a work in progress. He may work
just not ready.
Chances are he doesn't.
Yeah.
So don't just put someone in there because it fits the structure. Change the structure.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that's the whole thing about Tex. Like, to take him over in a long ass plane flight, after a pretty tough game in the wet. Like, I didn't think he should have played, or at least. Oh, look, I changed my mind a bit after retirement because then I think that could have galvanized the group.
Yeah.
But we didn't even ride that. We didn't even go with that.
No,
we got
that's
nothing out
right.
of that because he didn't play. So it's a complete mess. And when you think of, there's more than just Laird and Ibis, but those 2 guys, that 2 bad selection mistakes that maybe were the difference in the end. I know Freo obviously a better team than us, but that game was gettable at a point there. It was definitely up for grabs, and we didn't have the talent on the park, and we were essentially, play a few players down. There's others too, I'm sure we'll talk about, but you don't have to create your own problems before the game even starts.
No, we hamstrung ourselves, and there were, like you say, there's a few different ways they could have gone. Obviously, Tex was one that they could have done. Like 2 weeks ago, Matthew Nix said that having Riley as second ruck was our preferred option. So, and I know that there's talk of Riley's fitness and all the rest of it, but without being trite, I think the first area of fitness that Riley Thilthorpe needs to look at is his heart muscle, because he's not showing much at the moment. And I said last week that I would have put him up against Luke Jackson. If nothing else, just to show the kid what intensity is all about. Did you see Luke Jackson at the beginning of the last quarter absolutely monster McAndrew at consecutive centre bounces? And he looked like he was going to rip McAndrew's head off. He was that intense. That's what we need out of Riley Thilthorpe.
Yeah, like whether Riley's that sort of player, like or that sort of person, I'm not sure. But there are definitely levels you can go to, even if it's not your go, you can still play with a certain edge. And I think that's what he's done at times since he's come back from that knee injury. I think that's what I really liked about him. But he's lost that bit of that presence. Like, he didn't play terribly, but he was still underwhelming for what he is, and the talent that we know he has. Like, he's a skills based player. He's beautiful on the deck, beautiful decision maker and ball user, and obviously great pair of hands when he's up and about. But you're right. You would like to see a bit more mongrel, and that goes for a lot of our players. And that's probably something else I want to talk about is we allowed ourselves to get bullied by Freo.
Oh, yeah.
They were up and about in front of their home crowd, and credit to their crowd. I mean, it's insane. I look a bit bandwagony. I don't know where some of these supporters came from. We hadn't seen them up until now, but look, when you pack out the stadium, it was pretty loud for the players, and that obviously
55,000.
Yeah, that obviously feeds into the ego of the team itself, and you could see they were just riding that confidence and getting stuck into our players. Foss was doing his usual crap, but that's just that's his gig. You're going to get that from him.
Yeah,
I will say Mason Cox, just settle down, mate.
He's a Seppo. What do you expect?
Oh, it just shits me. Like, someone with his limited ability, and that guy wasn't the Siller or the game winner. The game was done at that point.
Yeah, of course it was.
But it's getting into Keane, instead of celebrating with his teammates, and he's a recidivist with this. He's done this multiple times. He goes straight for the man of the mark.
Yeah,
and then pointing at the scoreboard. Like, that sort of stuff turns me off Freo a bit. I want to like them because they're the best in-state chance of winning, but
isn't that taunting? Isn't there a rule for taunting?
Well, I don't know. I don't think you should be able to go straight up to the player and get into a fight. Shouldn't. I feel like you instigated a melee, essentially.
Yeah, so it's taunting. It's taunting. It's getting up someone. There's a rule for it.
Yeah, it's pretty annoying to see that stuff. But look, I will say that we've got to become more aggressive ourselves and become more arrogant. And I know it's hard when you're not winning as much. It's easy to be the arrogant team when you're getting you win 20 games a season.
Of course, yeah.
But you almost got to manufacture it a bit and become dislikable and antisocial, unsocial, as like the old Hawks were. I think that stuff's important.
For every Patrick Voss and Mason Cox they've also got a bloke like Brayshaw who just absolutely bullied us the whole game. Hayden Young absolutely bullied us the whole game. Sarong at times, Amos was just so strong up forward. They had strong, tough ball players that didn't take no for an answer. And that's competitive, controlled aggression. That's got nothing to do with being a dickhead. And
no, but there's little things you can do. Like, even Jackson, some of the stuff, his physicality, and he'd tack you to the ground and then he'd really sort of get into, and that shit like that. It pisses me off when I see it, but I know it works. I know it works because it intimidates the opposition team and it makes them go into their shell. And we don't do that enough, especially at our home ground. I know Tex has done it in the past at times, and some other players here or there, Dawson, but it's not really in our DNA. And I think you've got to change that to become a feared unit. Even towards the end where that bloody hit on Rochelle from Chapman, which was a dog act, and that should have been a reversal. I don't know how that wasn't paid.
I don't know either.
Because it was a decent hit on Rochelle, and Keys goes up there. And Keys runs up to him and then just gives him the old university lecture instead of actually, bring him to ground or actually do something.
Yeah.
I know the game was done at that point, but it just stand up for yourselves a bit more, become a bit more of a pain in the ass because I think those little things really do matter, especially against the really good teams. And Hawthorn, Brisbane, they're bullies. And now
Yeah.
Freo are bullies too. They know it works.
Yep. Well, and Sydney have been at times as well. Blokes like Chad Warner and that.
Oh yeah,
They don't mind mixing it up either.
big time.
No, look, I agree with you. But a lot of it comes back down to belief, and I still don't think when push comes to shove, big man, I still don't think this team believes. And whether it's a belief in themselves or a belief in what they're being asked to do, I'm not sure. But I think that when you believe in yourself and when you believe in your teammates, you become a very focused group, and I don't feel like we are. And there are a few players that when we get into the players segment, we'll highlight a few, but there's a few players, they talk about playing for your mates and playing for each other and being selfless and all the rest of it. Well, that translates onto the field to sticking a tackle or running an extra 5 yards to provide an option or to pick up an opponent. And we had a few blokes that aren't doing that. They're not. They're not playing to that team ethos, and I think that can be insidious into a playing group when you see a bloke who's just not doing what he should be doing at critical moments. Whereas I think if you're playing for Brisbane at the moment, or if you're playing for Fremantle, I don't think that any of those blokes would point at a teammate and go, he's not doing the right thing, because they all are doing the right thing. Like one unit.
Who are any particular players come to mind when you're referring to here?
Well, all right. We'll flip it this week. Sam Berry had an extremely disappointing game of football, big man. He didn't stick a tackle. He didn't chase his opponent. There were times that his first quarter was horrific. I didn't see him break a jog. I didn't see him stick a tackle. That he got broken tackles too often that led to scores by Fremantle. He didn't make any. You didn't see him at any stage as a link in transition. And unfortunately for Sam, this is now a trend. Okay, this goes back to the Jai Newcomb shellacking last season, and he's this was another test, and I don't mind if Sam gets beaten because he's just not as talented as his opponent, but Sam got beaten on effort, and that is so disappointing for a bloke who applies his trade on being a workmanlike, hard, gritty, hard tackling midfielder. And unfortunately, I mean, I've been a Sam Berry supporter from a long way out, but Sam's at the crossroads in his career now because he doesn't have too many strings to his bow, and if he is seen as someone who wilts under pressure, then he's very quickly going to find himself on the way out, unfortunately.
I'm prepared to give him one out, and that is if he wasn't 100%, which, to be fair, he shouldn't be playing anyway if that's the case.
Reports he's carrying a foot injury or something.
Yeah, he looked like someone who had no power in his game.
Nothing.
He couldn't accelerate. He was flat-footed constantly, and as you said, he wasn't able to bloody get around the ground particularly well either. His tackling really shat me. It was terrible for someone who's a great tackler. Yeah, there was no, and that's what I mean. There was no power or strength in his body. So if it's down to this foot issue he has, then clearly it's not 100% right, and he needs to own that and say, well, I'm not ready to go. And because you can't be carrying that sort of issue into the wildcard / finals, coming up. But he's been pretty good. He's had a great year for the most part. So this is like, he was okay last week, albeit in conditions that suited him.
Mm.
But he was terrible, as you said, in this game. I'm prepared to give him if he can respond next week and actually show that he's fully fit and ready to go. Then I'll give him obviously I'll let this one go. But that was concerning because it was just so bad. That's the thing that stood out to me. And he wasn't Post Malone in that regard, but
No.
yeah, we expect better now from him than that.
Yeah, look, and he's an important player for us. And if anyone needed to be rested if they're carrying an injury, it's Sam. He's taken a beating this year. He's played some really good games of football, and you know I'm a fan. So why hasn't he been rested in the past month? If he's carrying some sort of an injury, we've got other players that can play that role. But speaking of one of those players, I don't know what's going on with James Peatling at the moment. And the most surprising stat of all for James is that he only had 7 CBAs for the game. He played predominantly up forward, and he can't kick for goal. So I don't know why you're playing him up forward. And we seem to prefer Jake Saligo in that role more than James Peatling. But James doesn't seem to have been able to progress his game much past a scrappy, defensive kind of player either. And I don't know whether we just all we fell for the wrapping, and now that we've unpacked it, we're slightly disappointed with what we've received. But I thought he was better than that, and the way we're using him is weird. I don't know whether he's banged up as well, but to only have 7 CBAs, and both him and Sam Berry had only like 60% time on ground or something like that. And when you've already got Toby Murray on the bench, and then 2 of your midfielders are only spending 60% time on ground, what's going on with that?
I feel like I'm repeating myself, but again, I think he looked like he was still injured too. That hip flexor issue, he just lacked his normal combativeness. He's not always the biggest possession winner, but he couldn't even sort of bring the tackling or the intensity. And he was pretty ordinary against. No, I should say he was very ordinary against Richmond last week. So that's 2 bad games in a row since coming back. If he's not right, don't play him. And based on his performances, he probably needs to make way. It's just like you can't be playing like this, at this time of year, because that's two midfielders in such an important spot on the ground that's weren't up to it. And in Peatling's case, that's 2 weeks in a row. We needed some. We've got other players who could fill that role and do better than what Peatling is doing. I still have faith in him going forward because I like the way he plays. I know he's got to work on his composure and decision making, but we've seen when he plays, when he's at his top of his game, he's really he's that sort of coal-faced player that I think every team likes to have. But he hasn't had a particularly great year, and in terms of this season, I'd almost be willing to drop him and see what we can get from a Sid Draper or a Charlie Edwards or someone, because it's just he's not getting it done.
And the problem is, again, we sit in this hole of selection integrity, and now we've left it to the last game of the season, and Charlie Edwards hasn't played since May, and there's very good grounds for Charlie to have been included this week for one of those 2, if neither of them are fit. But it just again goes back down to the weird policy of selection. If you know your 2 inside mids are carrying stuff and you're going to have to nurse them through the game, why do you make it even harder for yourself by sacrificing one of your rotations on a bloke who is only going to spend 50% time on the ground and isn't going to do any good while he's on there anyway? Like, I don't know what they talk about at selection, but Jesus.
Especially when we're coming off a 6-day break going to Perth. That's what do you expect to happen? No wonder we ran out of legs in the last quarter.
Yeah, and we absolutely did run out of legs in the last quarter.
Yeah.
We just couldn't continue to go with them, and that's what it boiled down to. And they just ground us
Oh
down
yeah.
and ground us into the dirt, basically.
If
The
you
other
look at
bloke is sorry, go on.
I was going to say, if you look at the majority of stats, like for the first three quarters, we kept up with them in most areas, but in the last quarter, it was all one sided. That's why it looks so. There's quite a we lost most stats, but we're actually relatively even up to that point. But we ran out of gas, and we just managed the team properly. We created too many problems that you know put us on the back foot from the start, essentially.
Well, and judging by Matthew Nix's comments after the game, it sounded to me as if the plan was to hang with them for as long as we could, and then open the shackles in the last quarter and see what happens. But when the shackles were there to be opened, we were out of puff. We'd worked so hard just to claw our way and to stay into the game. And that's what I mean. We had no one fresh on the bench. We were all cooked. And if you're managing your bench like that, then what do you expect?
Correct.
And Josh Rochelle, we've given him a few outs because he's not getting a run in the midfield and bloody, bloody, blah. But I don't think we've seen the best from Josh for, at least a month, 6 weeks now?
There's an elephant in the room here. It's that bloody mouth guard.
I've seen you talk about this.
It's the mouth guard. So he doesn't normally wear a mouth guard, which blows my mind, but some players don't. But if you want to play midfield, I don't know how you can play without one. But anyway, he banged his bloody teeth in a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And since then he's had to wear a mouth guard, and it's this big pink one. He's constantly got it out. I don't even know if it fits right. He doesn't like playing with it because I don't. Maybe he hasn't played with a mouth guard his whole bloody career or juniors and everything. Who knows? And it's affecting him. I no doubt it's the reason he dropped that mark in the first quarter.
Oh,
and the
come
way
on.
the reason.
Come on,
dead
big
set.
man.
Dead set. There's little things you talk about, superstitions and little things that players do. He's all over the shop right now because half the time he's probably thinking about that bloody mouth guard he doesn't like in his mouth. I'm not even joking.
So one of the reasons I brought you on board was because you brought good insight. You went down religiously to training and had some good, intel from that, and people generally respect what you have to say. Now, I feel for the sake of your own credibility at this point, I should put you on mute for about 10 minutes so I just think about what you're saying.
What's the one good thing he did in this game? What was it? It was kick straight, for those two set shots. Yeah, well, that's because he had the mouth guard out. It's not like this is probably worse than the bloody long sleeves. I'm telling you, it's in his head. He doesn't like it.
Anyway, aside from the mouth guard, and look, if he's going to run up to the pork crowd and point to his teeth, he should be wearing a bloody mouth guard anyway. No, but all jokes aside, is it a bottom lip thing with Josh?
Is it a bottom lip thing? He's a mercurial player, but he allows himself to get beaten easily, and I think that at times, sometimes he's hard to play against. But when things aren't on his terms, and when he knows he's not having a particularly good game, I think he does chuck it a bit. And he's too valuable not to play because obviously he's a dead eye and he creates goals, whether it's kicking them or setting them up. So you always want him in the team, but he also needs to own the fact that yes, he's playing a difficult role as a small forward, but you gotta half every contest at least. And obviously you'd prefer if he wins more than of his fair share. And when you sort of feel sorry for yourself a bit, you're less likely to be able to do that. And I think he needs to become more invested and more, I don't know, switched on. It's not switched on because I do believe he tries, but there's levels to it. Like that, there was a moment, I'm sure you can remember, where I think it might have been the time when Rankin did that amazing pickup, and it got to Rochelle, and Rochelle sort of fumbled and then just sort of
loved it and kept going.
Yeah, and just sort of like, oh, well, I'm out of it.
Well, and he was lucky he ended up on the end of that chain because Rankin cleaned up his mess.
Yeah, and I was just like you're too good to be doing this stuff, you know, to rely on others to basically spoon feed you. And he has too many of those moments. He's 23 now. Like we expect more. And I do really rate him as a player, but he's also got to own some of this. It can't just all be, well, it's me, because whether he wants to play midfield or not, you know, we talked about that, but you know, you still got a pretty good gig. You kick 36 goals for the year in a team that's playing finals, or should be playing finals. It's not that bad. It could be a lot worse. So, you know, like get some mongrel and you become, because we've seen him when he's really fully on. He's a freak.
Yeah.
But he's dropped his bundle a bit lately.
Well, I think so. It looks to me like he has. You know, he's too good a player, and he should, in the back of his mind, he should be thinking, well, this coach isn't going to be here forever, and I need to make it basically impossible for them not to pick me in the midfield by doing all the things and showing all the attributes of a midfielder in any way that I can in the position that I'm playing. He doesn't work hard enough up and down the ground. He doesn't go hard enough when it's his turn to go. You know, I know he's a little bit of an opportunist, but he's got to understand that if that's the way he's going to play football, he's never going to play anything other than an opportunist forward. Because you can't be an opportunist only at AFL level. So, you know, it's up to him to make it impossible for them not to play him there. And I know he's performed well, you know, more often than not when he has been put in there, but he's got to show the same level of output when he's not in there. And I just feel like as the season's worn on and he's become a little bit resigned to his lot in life, that it's reflected on his performances.
Yeah. No, I agree. And this is not to, you know, have a real go at him.
Now, my earbud has just failed, so you keep talking, big man, and I'm just going to leave the seat for a minute and go and get my other earbud.
That's all right. No, I was just saying that, you know, at the end of the day, he's likely going to kick 40 plus goals for the year. He's if you combine his goals and goal assists for the year, it's right up there in terms of the small forwards in the game. And this is with him playing, you know, a bit of midfield earlier in the first month of the year. So he's there's a lot he does right, but I think we all agree there's some elements of his game that just simply need his own sake, but also the rest of the team, because there are moments in games where he lets himself get beaten too easily, and he's too good to do that. And he's a big, you know, he's a thick, strong lad, and so he shouldn't be able to be like beaten like that. It's just sometimes he does have the contest, and I love when he does that, but other times he just picks and chooses too much. And I know that's why he cops it from opposition supporters.
Yeah.
I think he is still underrated overall, but you know, if he's got a reputation, the best way to address that is to fix it. And we've seen at times in the back half of this year that he's still got holes in his game he needs to fix. It's not all like, you know, he's 23. He's not the complete product yet, but he's got to get that done himself.
100%. And the good thing for Josh is that everything is within his control. You know, all these things are within his control. He doesn't have to get more skillful or grow another leg. You know, these are just you know, methods of play that he needs to work on. So you know, all is not lost for Josh. But I feel like in the last month to 6 weeks, when we've really needed him to impose himself at times, he's been just a little bit. I've found just a little bit wanting. The last one there's two more that I want to talk about. But before that, I just want to. A few people are saying Jake Saligo. On rewatch, I actually thought Jake Saligo, particularly in the first half, was playing pretty well. I just wish Jake could get through a season without being injured. So hopefully next season he can get through a pre-season without his heart issue and, you know, osteitis pubis or whatever the hell else he's had, and actually get some fitness into him, because he's a player that needs to be at peak fitness.
Yeah, like it's frustrating to watch him because we know we've seen him do some really special things on the field, and but his acceleration is he's got no speed at the moment. Like he's
Mm.
never been quick, but he's slower than he was in years gone by.
Yeah,
So maybe he's just too fatigued to be able to, put the jets on or
yeah.
have any sort of strength. I reckon he gets caught holding the ball at least once. You can lock it in at least once a game,
And he goes to
if not
ground.
more.
He goes to ground
Yeah,
a lot, and that's
yeah.
the sign of a player who hasn't got anything in his legs.
And he's a pretty he's a wide dude, so he's pretty strong, and but he can't just rely on that. He's actually got to find a way to drive his legs more, and it seems like he just can't do it at the moment. So he's another one where I'm just thinking, you know, he's I still like him in the team, but he needs a big preseason to re-find some zip over the summer because he's much better than this. I still have
Yeah,
really big faith that he's going to be a really important part. Go watch if you can. Go watch the bloody. I know it's a preseason game, but watch that game he played against Port Adelaide up in Mount Barker at the start of last year,
mm.
and just see how much better he moved in that game to what he does now. Even the first
Well,
first month of the season last year
yeah, well,
against St Kilda and Essendon.
the showdown medal game that he won the medal, he played pretty bloody
Yeah.
well too, didn't he?
Um,
Um,
I'm obviously for judging elite players here, and
yeah,
they've got amazing rigs and stuff, but I'm not convinced he's really fully fit, if that makes sense.
well, you can have
Um,
muscle
you know,
and not have any power in your body. And
yeah, I just
look,
think his conditioning. I just don't think he looks like someone that's fully rock hard, and I don't think that's been
mm,
the case for some time. I think he needs. Hopefully, he doesn't have any lingering groin issues, and he can just have a really go nuts in the summer and become the player we think he should be.
yeah, well, he needs to, because the clock's ticking on, Jake. And I love him. I love the grit that he shows, and when he's up and about, he's a really solid player for us. But another one that is in danger of fumbling an AFL career, and can't afford that. Now, the last person that I want to speak to, and I know you're going to fight me on this, but our vice captain and member of our leadership group is a bloke who can't mark the ball in his hands, can't kick the ball in field play half the time, and has got a fairly low football IQ in many aspects of his game, and his output has been less and less over the course of the season. And I just feel like there are better options than Benny Keys now. I've loved his effort. I've loved what he's brought to the club. And when we were shocking, and we asked him to go through the midfield, I love the fact that he rolled up his sleeves and did as much as he could based on his limited skill set. But we've stuck him up forward as a defensive forward. He provides nothing in that regard, and he's stopped hitting the goals, the score sheet, except for his little Joe the Gooses. And again, I just think there are better options.
Um, this is a tough one because he had 3 goal assists again, so he's actually setting out goals. But the problem is, apart from that, he's not doing a whole lot right. It annoys me how often he still continues to be the marking target whenever we go long
Lockie
because he
Murphy.
can't mark. We've said it's amazing how often it happens. Every time I
Yeah,
see his boots, those bloody coloured boots, I'm like, oh no, it's Keys.
yeah.
And and yeah, and another issue we've talked about this too is that when there's a 50-50 contest, he never seems to be able to win it.
No,
He goes to ground or fumbles or just something stupid.
because he lacks
Um,
composure.
yeah. Oh yeah, he's all frenetic and everything's going on all at once. He's not. He's he's almost the exact opposite of my boy Milk. So, I mean, statistically, it looks pretty good on the paper. On paper, he kicks goals, he sets goals up. As I said, he's the second highest goal assist player in the league, or thereabouts. But in crunch moments, I don't trust him. and I think a lot of us would, to kick goals or to do the right things at the right time. And I think he's got these deficiencies in his game that he's never going to be able to address at his age. He's never going to become bloody Toby Green in the air, put it that way.
No.
So it just depends how much bad are you willing to take with the good. If you had a choice out of Keys and Newborn, who are you taking?
I'll probably play one short.
Isn't that bad, is it?
Oh well, no. Look, all jokes aside, and I don't want to be crass about individuals. I'd probably play. It's a line ball. I mean, you take A and B because at least he's more of a natural footballer, but then you take Ben Keys on his work rate and his ability to get on the end of stuff, and all that. And look, a couple of years ago, Ben Keys was actually really useful, particularly at forward stoppages. Like, he was very, very good at getting on the end of a tap from a throw-in in the forward pocket and stuff like that. He was running good patterns, but he just seems to have lost all that now. Now he's just running around aimlessly.
Yeah. Well, his numbers are down a bit. He had 10 touches on the weekend. Admittedly, 6 of them were score involvements, so he was value for touches, I guess. But
yeah, that stat's a bit misleading, though. I mean,
sometimes when half of them are goal assists, though, that's impressive. But no, I know what you're saying. It just, as we're trying to improve this team and the squad more and more, and these sort of players who, these effort-based players do stand out. They go from someone that you sort of admire to ones you get frustrated with because you want the more composed, skillful players in your team. And I mean, the question is, do we have those players in reserve that can overtake a guy like Keys? That's up for debate, but I think,
to be fair, at the moment we probably don't have another small forward or a defensive forward. Luke Pedler's probably the one,
and he's bloody out with a torn hamstring. So, yeah, that's a list management issue in itself. But yeah, I think that's I think that's that lack of trust. I think that's the issue. I think where a lot of us were having with him. I'm still a bit more keen on him than I know a lot of you guys are, and you're more than welcome to your own opinion. But yeah, I can see why people get frustrated because in the moments he does let you down, and the good teams don't really have a lot of those players, and we seem to have maybe one or two too many.
Yeah, so we've gone through a fair list of players that we thought were down and didn't provide. The two that I was particularly concerned about were Berry and Riley Thilthorpe. So the other ones, perhaps they don't get picked in other... Like of those players that we've just rattled off, there's a couple of them that probably don't get picked in any other AFL side, certainly not a top 6 side. I don't think Ben Keys gets picked in a top 6 side for any other club.
Hang on, so just sorry to interrupt. I will say every club has their lesser players. Like Sydney,
for sure.
Sydney have stars. They had Billy Cootie and Will Green and a couple of other players who are like either kids or very fringe players who probably won't be on the list in 2 or 3 years' time.
But they're not the vice captain of the club in the leadership.
No, I do agree with that. Yeah.
And that's the difference. That's a bit indicative of our club. Going back to the Tex thing, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest that consideration was made for the fact that Tex would want to play his last game in front of his home crowd at GWS, and the club are probably going to put on a big thing about that, and lots of celebrations, and rightly so. Tex deserves it. But do you think that might have been a consideration as to why he was rested this week and not next week? Or last week?
As in terms of actually like building up the game itself?
No, just like imagine if he played this week and got injured.
Oh,
I'm sorry, but I
yeah.
don't put it past our club to
I'd
make
hope
that
not.
sort of a choice.
I'd hope not. That's the risk you take in any game. He could have got injured earlier this year.
Yeah, but he didn't retire until last week.
Yeah. It's probably something. I mean, we know Collingwood did it with Pendles, didn't they? For his big celebration game, they rested him almost like 3 times in a space of about 1.5
get
months.
it all line up.
Yeah, so he could play a home game at the MCG. So I can sort of see your point. I mean, we wouldn't be the only club to do it, but given the
Not in such
circumstances,
an important game,
I would hate for that to be the case, but you can never put it past clubs to do that sort of thing. I mean, there's an argument to be made that, you know, part of the reason Leedy keeps getting games is to get him to 300.
Well, 100%. And don't get me started on that one. All right, look, JT Groove has been waiting for what seems like an eon. So I'm going to keep him waiting a bit longer. No, I'm going to bring him onto the stage. And we'd love to hear his dulcet tones. So come on board, mate. Where'd you go? Where'd he go? He just dropped out then. He'll be back.
It's a good chat.
Yeah, I just thought I'd kick him out.
He says try again.
No, I don't. You're not on the stage, mate. You're not in the crowd audience. You got to get back in the audience.
I can see him in the audience.
Oh, there you are.
His hand up.
There you go. Come on, JT.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me back again.
All good, mate.
That's all right. How are we on this Sunday evening?
We're all right, mate.
I think we've answered that question.
We're a bit flat.
I'm doing all right. I've had the Sunday roast and got the scotch in hand, and I'm on the CrowCast. What better? How good is it?
Or don't call it the CrowCast. That's another platform.
Oh, CrowCast. Sorry.
Yeah,
guys.
come on, mate.
Sorry about that. So I just wanted to come on and interesting game this week with the vibes. I mean, we were a bit upset that we won against Richmond last week and then we lost against Freo this week, but we seemed to play a lot better. Sort of noticed a bit from how Freo gathered from half back. It was a bit like the Crows from sort of mid 2000s, where they, in my view, got a lot of players around half back, 6 to 8 players, and won the ball and then string forward. And even though we, had some frontal pressure on them, they were able to sort of handball through and get forward. And I thought, they went forward, with a bit of good strength there and put our defence under pressure. But I was pretty impressed with how our defenders sort of broke even and, but eventually the way inside 50 sort of got us. So I was just interested in, I had 2 questions for you tonight, one on insight and one on foresight. So I was just interested where the way we played, the way that we freed up this week, do you think the fact that our coaching group saw the way that Melbourne dismantled Fremantle the previous week, that by attacking and taking them on, do you think our coaching group decided that, if we actually take these blokes on, we're half a chance? And I'm a little bit worried about that, but interested in your views in terms of, did we play an attacking game style this week because we saw someone else do it and we thought that was our best chance to win?
Boss?
Big man.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you look at the amount of scores, like there was basically 200 points between the two teams. It would suggest that it was a fairly attacking game from both teams, and that's something we don't tend to do. We don't like shootouts, according to Nick's. It did come in waves though. Like I noticed in the last 10 minutes when the game was sort of getting away from us, we really took it on, and we obviously coughed up a couple of goals because of that. But I didn't think otherwise. We play with a whole lot of run and carry or dash, and as I said earlier in the podcast, I just don't think our boys are wired that way. I think they have the capability to do it, but when they try it, they can stuff it up because they're just not trained into those sort of habits. And it helps when you get guys like Hawk Kahan and others into the team to provide that. Cook is another example, but I think with the way in which we've been structured and trained this whole pre-season and this year, there's only so much that individuals themselves can do. As a whole, the team's just hasn't been made or bred to play that sort of a style, and I think it's a real shame, Groove, because I think that's with the talent we have and the sort of players we have in our team. I think we have enough of those talented, classy, and even a bit of speed in our team to be able to play that way. But for whatever reason, the coaches have got us playing a game style that I don't think suits us. I never thought of us as a great kicking team, and yet we seem to rely on that a lot because that's the way we're made to play, particularly out of the back half. And I think that's a real issue for us, and that's obviously become pretty evident throughout the season. I think we missed the trick. I think we misjudged the strengths and weaknesses of our list with our game style, and that comes down to coaching. Plain and simple. I mean, Nick's and Murray Davis as well. A lot of the stuff we do is based on what Brisbane do, but just look, compare the kicks out of defence of our team compared to what the Lions have. They got Zorko. They got. I mean, Wilmot's not a great kick, but he's a long kick. Fletcher's a beautiful kick. There's others too. Kitty Coleman when he's in the team. Even Harris Andrews for a key defender is a really nice ball user. And there's others too. Not everyone has to be bloody Dane Zorko, but they have enough. Whereas we've got Laird, Worrell has become a turnover merchant. Max Michaelani, the same. Keane is one that does change our ball movement with his kicking, but we don't have enough good ball users to justify the game plan that we've put in place. It's just, I think they misread the whole list in that regard.
Well, I think that's a really good point, big man, because it's not just about misreading how the competition was going this year, but it's also about playing a style that suits your list. And I think you're dead set spot on that he is trying to shoehorn a group of players into a game style that he feels will be most successful, rather than having a look at the group. And remember when he first came in, he said he wanted to develop a game plan that would help players, show off their one-woods. I don't think he's been true to that at all. I think because this is another thing, JT, you might have a question, a thought on this as well. How many players in our squad do you think have actually gone backwards in the last 12 to 18 months? I don't feel that, apart from Isaac, I don't feel that there's many players on our list, maybe Zach Taylor a little, but I don't feel like there's many players on our list that have actually gone forwards in their development.
Cool.
Maybe Cookie.
I think that's I think that's a perfect segue to my second question to sort of lead on, good. Where we talk about the foresight of our coaching group. So you guys talk about selection integrity and how often our best 23 is being locked in February. We make decisions on selection based on that. I think about our list in terms of, that top tier of our star players, that best 5 or 6, our supporting established players, that sort of, next best, what's that, sort of half a dozen players, and our bottom 6 being our players that are emerging or fringe players coming through. This is the first year for a time, and I had this sort of epiphany after the Fremantle game where in previous years I thought, oh wow, we picked some pretty bad bottom 6 players that cost us games in previous seasons, but I haven't felt that this year. Our bottom 6 like a Cook's played well, or a Borlase has come in, or even a Lockie McAndrews come in, or a Hall Kahan. All these types of players have come in, and our bottom 6 has done well. But our coaching panel hasn't. We've addressed this year our team not being fit enough to and resting players over the course of the season, but we haven't addressed that middle tier, those established players, for form. We haven't said, Keezy, you're out of form, you need to go back for a week or two, or Max Michaelani, haven't gone too well this year, so let's put you back in the twos for a week or two to find that form. And I feel it's getting a bit late in the season for that, where our stars, most of them, I mean, like Thilthorpe, and there's some exceptions there, and our fringe players actually playing quite well, but it's that middle group that I find where really haven't addressed, and we've accepted some mediocrity in that group. But is that to follow on for your question there, Boss? Can you validate that assessment I'm having there, or am I crazy?
Oh, look, both can be true. No, look, I've banged on about selection integrity for ages, and I don't think we're serious about that as a footy club. I think there are players who've had their development stunted as a consequence. Luke Pedler is one. Sam Berry, I think, took a lot longer to come on because he was the victim of favouritism in the selection table. Charlie Edwards, we've seen Oscar Ryan come through. I think to an extent it's a product of the SANFL being an absolute shithole to try and develop players.
Yeah, only adding games and all those buys, it's crazy, isn't it?
Oh, it's a completely different style of football. And, Oscar Ryan has not been shooting the lights out, for example. But he comes in and he looks poised and he looks, ready to go, and it's a completely different game of football. And he's probably thinking, where's the mud? So that must be difficult to manage. But I do agree that there's too many goal passes and there's that middle tier of player. But it's not only that. Have a look at our leadership group. And I know the players vote on this, but you can't tell me that there's not some sort of endorsement or whatever from the coaching group. You've got Riley O'Brien, you've got Benny Keys, you've got Isaac Cumming, Darcy Fogarty. Who are these people? They're like, Riley O'Brien can't get a run. Benny Keys is probably the worst skilled player in our club. And Isaac Cumming is a new person who, to my way of thinking, hasn't really established himself in terms of being an important player in the side. And you think, well, maybe it's a Broken Hill connection. And of course, Alex Neil-Bullen, who's also a blow-in. To me, it's not an inspiring group, but it's also not a very good representation of the club. And I think it says exactly what you're getting at. That there's a lot of middle tier players that get a pretty soft ride at the Adelaide Crows.
Oh, you need to be in leadership. I think you need to be a good bloke, but you'd still need to have capability as well. And I feel that sometimes, particularly with the example there about who's in the leadership of the Crows, we sort of berate the good bloke aspect at a little bit at the expense of pure football capability.
Yeah. But I think the way that leadership group is put together is indicative of how our selection goes. I think as a club, we value the wrong thing. Oh, sorry, we don't value the wrong things. I feel like, and Big Man, I'll be interested in your thoughts on this. I feel like we put too much weight on things other than getting the football at our football club.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk about purely the leadership group, we disagreed with it when it came out, didn't we?
Yeah.
We didn't like the way it was created. I actually much enjoyed our leadership group last year. This time around, it felt like there was too many names again, and they were the wrong names. I think one of the parts of this team that we're excited about is that 21 to 25 group coming through in age.
Yeah.
And they're basically not represented at all except for Thilthorpe, who was always a bit of a strange choice to me as a leader because I always felt like he had a bit of maturity to come.
Yeah, and that's been borne out.
And I think that Warren and Rochelle, even though I know we talked about Rochelle's issues earlier, but I thought they were probably more ready for that sort of a leadership role. And we see how much Rochelle he's the nucleus of that whole core young group.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff matters. And unfortunately, with both our leadership team and also our selection policies, it's all based around experience and players that the coach knows what they're going to do each week, rather than trusting the younger players or the ones who haven't had much of a taste or haven't had a taste at all to do the job. And it's a real shame because time and time again we've seen guys come to the team and for the most part are more than capable. Like Ryan's a great example, but we've seen with Cook, Nankervis, even McAndrew, who came into the team this year. There's others too, plenty of others. I just can't think at the top of my head. But he always seems to go back to the well at the end of the day.
Yep.
We've seen that with Laird. Like Laird's out with an ankle injury, straight back in, and now unlikely to come back out, even though he's playing like crap. Cumming got dropped for a week, I think it was like that, and that's all it lasted really before he hurt himself again. Even though I do rate Cumming, I do agree he's been a bit disappointing this year. And there's others too, and I think
does
there's
nice
a chance
things doesn't get enough of it.
Yeah, that's correct. I think there's a real opportunity for Nixie, even coming to this week to take a bit of a stand and say, no, we're not tolerating Laird's performances or Peatling's performances, and or even Cummings, and drop one or two players. And I think that would really jazz up the group, going into the finals, that these players underneath who feel like they probably haven't had a chance. Well, now's your chance. But I don't trust that that's going to happen. I think we're going to just bring in Neil Bullen back in, and probably Miller if he's ready, and more young players who get shunted out. And it's a real shame because I agree. I just think that you got the priorities wrong, and you need to really build from that core group, that young group coming through within. Doesn't mean every player has to be below 30 years old, but I think there's definitely a seniority complex to the whole selection, and probably potentially the culture of the group as well, to an extent. We've talked about that in the past.
Yeah, I think it's the way the club runs.
Yeah. And I'm just looking at Collingwood, it's probably the same. You got bloody half the team there and almost geriatric, but look at Hawthorn there, but they've still managed to keep pumping games into young kids in the team. And I do like the fact we have stuck with some guys like this year, like Cook and Nank and others. But it feels like the Laird and Ryan thing was just like just a step back. That was like.
Oh.
That's stuff that we've been seeing in the past that never works out. It was the same thing with Murphy and Douglas and guys in the past, and I don't know why we keep doing it to ourselves, because it doesn't work.
No, and you have a look at the Hawthorns, like you said, and their ability to pump games into young players. I mean, you could say the same about we like the Australian cricket team at the moment. We keep picking the same blokes, expecting a different result. Now, I just feel like the strength of Matthew Nicks when he came in, which was the ability to bring the players together in what was probably a bit of a fractured environment, post, kerfuffle, and then, we had the challenges with COVID and all the rest of it. And what he's probably done is lent a lot on the leaders of the team at the time, your Tex Walkers and your Rory Sloanes and your Rory Lairds, etc., to, be that conduit between the coaching group and the playing group. And as a consequence, he's probably developed very close relationships with those senior players. But it's an indictment on someone who's in a senior leadership role like Matthew Nicks is, that he still can't compartmentalise his personal relationships with those blokes away from his responsibilities as part of his job, which is to coach a team and develop a squad and be successful. And I feel like he's tripped over himself in that regard, and he hasn't been able to navigate that piece. He's not able to look someone like Rory Laird straight in the eye, who he's coached since school, and say, "Look, Rory, that we're not going to go with you anymore because what you're producing isn't good enough." He's just not capable of doing that. Anything else, JT?
Oh, I'll leave you guys to it, but I'll just I think I'll pump up Milk on the way out for Big Man, because I thought he had a really good game on the weekend. I was wondering, Big Man, do you think he'll sort of meet the the urban legend of Tony Modra, where if kids were born in the 90s and they didn't know who their dad was, there was a chance that it was Tony Modra? Do you think Milk will live up to his name as the Milkman, and kids that don't know who their dad is, born in the 2020s, that might be who he is because he's such a great player?
Yeah, I don't think he's quite as majestic or photogenic as Mods was.
Majestic.
I would think Mods is majestic, yeah. And, no, look, I know you're being facetious, but he did play a pretty good game, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Especially those first three quarters. His last quarter he was very quiet, but no, I was pretty happy with him. I will say though, if his job was to tag Jordan Clark, I don't know if he did a great job defensively. Because I think Clark had a pretty good game. He's a good player, Clark, but he probably got a bit too much of it for my liking. But the good thing is he kicked goals, and that's probably been the one issue with Milk's game lately, is he hasn't kicked enough
Wasn't
goals.
Ben Keys our defensive forward?
I don't know. I feel like it's more Milk these days.
Yeah. That's the problem.
Yeah, ball in hand, he was good. I like to see those players recognised and rewarded, similar to Pedler, that have good bang for buck. But just thought I'd have a little joke video on the way out. Thanks for having me on, guys. Good to talk with you as always.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for listening. Would you have given Milk a couple of CBAs? I would have.
Mate, I would have given Milk a couple of CBAs about bloody 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, I know.
But it doesn't happen. It's amazing. We took Petling out of there because he wasn't getting the job done, but he still couldn't get in. Just one thing I was going to add to what we're talking about before, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it, boss, was, we were talking about attitudes and seniority culture and stuff, and there's been little things that come out of you so often. I remember hearing recently, it was with the whole Tex thing, and Brodie Smith was talking about Tex's retirement and how Brodie himself felt like, he was struggling with the whole not getting a game when he felt like he should have at his age, and, being a bit down in the dumps about that, and he needed Tex to sort of, pump up his spirits a bit. Yep. And we've heard that, Rory Sloane saying, he doesn't love how some of the older players get treated at the club in terms of, getting dropped and whatnot. Yep. Is this a real issue, or is this something that happens at every club, do you think?
Look, I think it happens at every club. But I think, like, at every ammo club that I played for, it happened. It happened to me, and I wasn't terribly happy with getting dropped down and playing B grade. But I think it's more about, like, you can't expect a bloke to be happy about getting dropped. A professional athlete who's plied his trade as a professional sport, doesn't want to know when the end is coming, because it sneaks up, and all of a sudden, here you are, you're borderline picked. But I think this is where a club needs to be very clear about its policies and communicate clearly around its expectations, and have a process around managing these situations. We saw Hawthorn a few years ago got rid of two of their favourite sons. Luke Hodge and Jordan Lewis, premiership players. Out you go. Go and play for someone else. There's no room left here for you. We have to turn this list over. And they went on and, particularly Hodge, had reasonably good back into their careers at another club, but they'll always be Hawthorn boys. I come back down to, unfortunately, what Phil used to say about having man conversations. You've got, this is a professional sport, and we're paying Matthew Nix and the people in that coaching group and in the football department good money to manage these situations. And the thing that worries me the most about the comments that come from people like Brodie Smith and Rory Sloane is that it smacks of tail wagging the dog. And we have had instances of that in the past with the Adelaide Footy Club, and we've always had suspicions about it at various stages. And for Brodie and Rory, they don't have to like it, they don't have to agree with it, but they need to accept it and to understand why it's happening, rather than go out of the club bitter and twisted and, come out on radio and take pot shots at the club. The club did them very well, those boys. And, for them to go out with sour grapes is more an indictment on them, but it's also shows to me that it's a lack of good management by the football administration.
And Talia was another example.
Talia is another example. Yep. Never to be seen at the club again.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you hear like the same things happen at other clubs, but like the players themselves seem to almost badmouth our club a bit more. So I don't know if it's a culture within or if we just don't internally handle these things well. But yeah, it does peeve me a bit. It does concern me when I see these things.
I think we build up our players too much, big man. I think our club is prone to pumping up our first tier players to the extent where they think that they're invincible.
Yeah.
And I think it's a mistake because we see at critical moments those players have not been able to deliver.
Yeah.
You know, Brody Smith crumbled at key moments. Tex Walker has crumbled at key moments. Rory Laird has crumbled at any moment. You know, I mean, there haven't been too many players, senior players, in the last decade and a half that have stood up in key moments. You know, like a Darren Jarman kicking 5, or a Kane Johnson just knocking out, getting the ball, or you know, a Benny Hart just locking down under a barrage in the first half against North Melbourne. You know, key players standing up in key moments. We haven't had those players for quite a while, and I think it's because they think the club owes them something.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. It's a bit depressing sometimes, but yeah, just something that's sort of lingered in my head lately, and I just thought it was worth talking about.
It's a good one. It's a good one because I think it goes back to how the club is run, and you know, you would probably know as well as I do that the club can be very, very insular at times, and it doesn't mind turtling up and closing the doors and windows and the shutters and keeping everyone protected inside. And you know, sometimes that's warranted, but I think as a consequence of that, the players have an unrealistic view of where they sit. And as you know, Alex Neil-Bullen rightly said when he came into the club, we haven't won shit. We haven't won shit for 28 years. 28 years. So all the players that have come through our club in that period of time, good, bad or indifferent, have not achieved anything. You know, there's been individual accolades. Tex making 300 games is an individual accolade that he should be proud of. You know, 700 goals, should be proud of it. You know, Rory Sloane being captain of the club, should be proud of that. But as a team, which is what they're there for, they haven't achieved shit. So why do we owe them anything? Why does the club owe them anything? So, you know, I think it will take a very strong person to turn our club around. And I think Matthew Nix was the right person at the right time to glue the playing group together. And we all know who could have been that person, and unfortunately he couldn't be here to do it. But we need a strong person to come in and turn our football corporation into a football club. And until that happens, we will have a lot of very nice results and we'll have a lot of very nice players. And when push comes to shove, we will get bullied, like you described earlier, by a tougher team who's actually playing like a football club. That's my honest view, and has been for a long time.
That's fair enough. It's pretty salient points, mate.
Yeah, so what will be interesting, big man, is in at the end of next year, when the Constitution dictates that the AFL vote is redistributed, and the AFL is no longer holds a veto position on our board or to our club. because the club has a few choices about how it can go about that redistribution, and one of them is to make our club fully member-owned, or member-run, I should say. But people think that's a fait accompli. It's absolutely not a fait accompli. They can redistribute that vote a different way. And I feel like there needs to be pressure. The membership, I think, after 30-odd years, deserve now to own and run their club. And anything less than that, I think, is going to be a real nail in our coffin long term in terms of our success, because we'll continue to be run by the balance sheet instead of footy first. And, you know, Barmy came in last year and he had that really nice speech, and he talked all the right things and he said all the right things. And I'm still hopeful that he's been sitting back and observing for the last year, and that post-season some changes are made on the back of his comments, because he's director of football at board level. But I unfortunately, I'm not confident.
No,
so
neither.
End of next year is going to be a real crossroads for our club in terms of where we are going forward. I don't know. What do you think about all of that?
I think that Isaac Rankin played a hell of a game.
Hey, look, you asked the bloody question.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, it's amazing. We've been going this long. We haven't actually pumped up old mate Isaac.
No, we haven't, and we should.
He should. Let's be honest. That was if it was a journal, I don't know if it was Corns or McClure or both, were saying that he doesn't get it done against the good teams. Well, there you go.
Yeah, he just did.
Exceptional. One touch. His ball use. I wish he kicked a couple more goals, but apart from that, like it was almost a faultless performance. And he's put together like 5-6 weeks now of just some of the best midfield football in the comp. You know, Corns talks about how he's going to get tagged, and that's true. Not every team tags, of course, but he's going to cop a few tags. But he's copped them this year already. Like Buddy Mullen went to him.
Yeah.
And others have too, and he's done okay for the most part in those games. So the exciting thing is he's only 26, and I think that he's found his level now. If he can just stay on the park, which has been his biggest issue, we finally got another midfielder to tag along Dorse. The problem is, apart from those two and a couple of cameos from a few others, no one went with him. And that was the case against Richmond, and that was again the case against Freo. And we've praised this team for it being, you know, the depth of our team and the evenness across our list that's sort of won us games. But lately, it's been left up to too few, and that's just that's not what wins you games against the good teams.
No, that's right. Well, it's too easily shut down, and you know, we talk about blokes like Berry playing with a niggle, or Riley Thilthorpe playing with a niggle. Jordan Dawson had his rib cage turned inside out halfway through the second quarter or whatever, and he still played out the game with 27 touches. I mean, you're right. They need mates. They need blokes to step up, and that's why I was so critical about Sam Berry's game, because he was the man that needed to go with Geordie and Isaac and really make a statement in that midfield. Isaac Rankin, I've said it for the last couple of weeks, but I'm so impressed by the way he's been able to round out his game and just work on the aspects of his midfield craft that were probably weaknesses. You know, his ability to find the ball and his ability to play behind the ball, but also then get, you know, he could have easily had 3 or 4 goals on the weekend. A couple of those shots were quite gettable. You know, so he could have had 3 goals on the back of that 39 disposal game as well. And blokes like Corns and McClure who say he's overrated. Well, I know who was overrated, and it's probably those two in their respective professions, to be perfectly frank.
39 touches, nearly half of them contested.
Against the top team.
Against the top team. 10 clearances. 13 score involvements. I mean, and obviously that goal, and he kicked one goal three. So as you said, he could have get 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's been doing this week in, week out now. It's a ridiculously good run of form. And he's doing it everywhere. His work rate has been exceptional. He's getting ball in defence. There was a contest on the wing or half forward we had on Friday night. And then he was buttering us up in like 10, 15 seconds later in deep defence.
Yeah.
And I was just like insane. And it's no surprise he was clocked up the most kilometres for us. And yeah, it's so impressive because he's, 6 tackles and 25 pressure acts. So he's bringing that defensive element too, which has sort of been one of the issues in his game. Super, super proud of what he's doing. And he's a weapon for us going forward. If we're actually going to achieve anything in the next few years, we know how good Dawson is, but for Miller to join him, for Rankin to join him in that regard, that's 2 guns in there, and he's probably more of a pure midfielder than Dawes is.
Yeah.
Just need to keep adding to that group. But that's a pretty good starting block, those 2, because they're both they're damaging too. That's the key.
Well, and that's why I don't think we're far off it. People say, we haven't got a classy midfield. Well, we almost do have a classy midfield. What we need is, and if it's not Sam Berry or James Peatling, then move aside. Perhaps it's Zach Bailey if he comes across, although there's been a few rumblings that might not be happening either. We've got 2. Someone said, yeah.
I look. It could well be true, but I don't think that's because Tim Ginniver knows. I think he's just assumed based on what Caro and stuff are saying. There's no way Ginniver would know that stuff.
No, I don't think he'd know, but I just wonder whether he's been privy.
Oh, I can't imagine. That.
I mean, he moves in circles of people that might know.
Maybe, but I mean, his own 5AA mate in Kim Dillon said this week that it's basically almost done. He was confident on it. So, I'm not saying Dillon's right. I'm just saying that I can't imagine bloody Tim Ginniver had any idea.
God, don't knock Timmy G's, all right.
Look, he's got a decent pair of teeth, and he was a decent player, but that's about it.
Fair chin on him.
Yeah, it's a big chin.
Yeah. I heard that's where they were going to send the illegal immigrants now that Nauru's changed their name. They're going to send them to Timmy G's chin. More space anyway. Look, I mean, really, we haven't done a traditional wrap tonight because we haven't gone through team stats and we haven't gone through player stats, but I think it's been a pretty robust conversation. If we look at the team stats, we lost most of them. And as you said, big man, we were kind of around the mark for a good portion of the game, and then we just fell in a heap a bit in the last 20 minutes of the last quarter, and lost some of those. But one thing that I did want to talk about was the score origin stat. Fremantle got 8 goals, 11. That's 19 scoring shots from their forward half, and 52 points from turnover. And I think, if I'm right in saying that a lot of those forward half scores were from secondary or repeat forward 50 entries. And I think that was going back to what we were saying right at the beginning with regards to our distribution out of defence and our kick stop kind of play. It really shows up in the stats that we were not able to get any sort of decisive transition out of our back half, and I think that's been the case without Miller. That's been the case just about all season.
Correct, and you can't be, as I said earlier, you can't be reliant on a single player to be the difference between you being able to do that or not. Yes, Miller is a great player, had a great year, and clearly a key part of what we try and do. But yeah, you can't rely on just one guy. And I think that shows you how sort of, I was going to say broken's a strong word, but it's a system that just doesn't work. And it doesn't bring the best out of the players we do have. So it needs a lot of tinkering. It's probably in a better state than it was at the start of the year, but we haven't seen the improvement we would have liked to have seen compared to, and it's a shame too because 2023 was we were aesthetically a great side to watch. And this is largely the same cattle with better players added to it.
Yeah.
And yet, in terms of our offensive stuff and our transition, we've actually gone backwards.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember when it changed? It changed, about round... I'm going to say about round 4 last year?
Oh, well, I think they were scared. They were scared when that bloody Essendon game when they kicked 100 points, even though we kicked 160.
Yeah, well, that's true.
And then we had the Geelong game, the gather-round game. I think that spooked them too.
Yeah, that's true. So we went from being ahead of the curve to getting little scaredy pants and dropping behind it.
But we turn it over anyway.
Well, so that's it. And not only that, but because we set ourselves so deep in defence now that it actually puts you under pressure. Like, it's sustained pressure. Our defensive half is under so much sustained pressure because the ball ping-pongs in and out because we sit so deep. We allow the opposition so much territory on the way up. We don't put any pressure on them. Like, what was the game that I said the other day? It was a Collingwood game, I think, where McRae changed up and he was playing very much in that centre zone. He had a grid of about 12 players up against us in that centre zone, and it completely messed us up. He didn't allow us to get any sort of field position, and I feel like we allow our opponents to get quite a bit of uninterrupted field position because we're too busy folding back in behind the play, and then we want to rebound from 30 metres out from the opposition's goal rather than try to turn the ball over, forward of centre. And when we do play well, the games that we have played really well, the forward half turnovers is a stat that we always highlight. Repeat forward 50 entries is a stat we always highlight. But half the time we're not even set up to do that.
And for a kicking team, we still don't seem to be able to find many options in space around the ground. Particularly once we get out of that back 50. It's amazing how often we still end up kicking to contests or to short to one-on-ones and they get into, punched away, or it's very rarely we actually consistently hit 4 or 5 chain kicks and then go inside 50. And another issue too is we don't change the angles nearly enough. I was watching some other teams today,
we never do.
Even Carlton, and there'll be times where they're sort of in that area where they've crossed the center of the ground. Yeah. They're still willing to hit kicks across, switch play or go inside again and then open the ground up. And, you obviously then you go short again inside 50. We just seem to be like, okay, we got the ball. We're maybe 80 meters away from goal. Let's just bomb it long and see what happens.
Well, and that's the thing. Because we can't carry the ball far. I've been on this for so long. We don't carry the ball far enough in transition, and so our forward 50 entries are from so far out that they're just big long bombs and everyone just sits underneath it and the ball gets killed. We don't... The good teams carry the ball in extra possession and are entering the forward 50 from 60, 65 metres out. We're entering from 70 to 80 metres out. And it's bloody useless. And on your changing lanes thing, that's another thing that I've been on for a long time. And if you watch the way Brisbane moved the ball out of defence with that first kick, particularly Zorko, how many times the first kick will be to a bloke in the corridor, and then they've got options. They can either keep going through the corridor if it's clear, or they can go either side and move laterally again. Because what Matthew Nicks doesn't seem to understand with his kick mark game plan is that you're giving the defensive grid time to shift from sides like the zone. They can shift and they can compress the ground on one side because we're always going up and down one side. The whole point, if you're going to use a kicking game, is to move it laterally, but get over the first line of the grid so that you can actually spread the grid and then you get in behind it. We don't do that. We're so slow with our transition that we just allow the zone from the opposing side just to constrict us. And so any ball movement is shut down unless we're like 2 centimetres from the front row of the bloody grandstand.
And then we rely on kicking to a contest and hoping that we're taking a contested mark. Usually you don't, which usually tends to force a stoppage. And we're very much I think we're in the back half of the teams in terms of contested possession differential.
Yeah.
So it's not an area of strength. So we shouldn't be inviting these contested situations, and yet our game plan is set up to do it.
And if you ever look at how many times Fremantle went into their forward 50 with a low pass from 65 metres out, they've got 3 tall forwards up there, and at times they had Mason Cox up there as well, and they only used him in the last to put more pressure on us forward. But, quite often they're kicking to a one-on-one, and quite often that person is on a lead. And usually that ball is coming from outside the arc, but only by 10 or 15 metres. It's not 80 metres away. But we've been doing that for a long time, and the reason is we don't carry the ball forward enough because we don't move the ball fast enough, and we don't, like you say, we don't change lanes often enough. We don't use the 45. The amount of times we get the ball on the point of the square, big man, and instead of going laterally around to try and access the fat side of the ground, we just bomb it in to that congested pocket, and it gets hit out of bounds or gets run out the other side. We never, ever, ever move the ball laterally forward of centre. Very rarely do we do that.
I swear the only ground we seem to do it at is Marvel. It's like the only ground we seem to lower our eyes.
Which doesn't seem to lend itself to that sort of...
No, but like you compare to how we played against the Bulldogs earlier this year. It was a much more. I mean, it was much nicer to watch, but it was a much more effective game style.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's just. It must be. Yeah, no, I don't know. Like I don't know exactly what Nixie and the co are talking, like saying to the team, but it must be mind numbing at times to play that way when you see other teams, like even like guys like Collingwood and such, who play a game style that I think would suit our list a lot better, put it that way.
Well, and, people can say, that the coach can't kick the ball or handball the ball for them. Yes, that's very true. And the unforced errors are definitely on the players, and lack of run and lack of second efforts and all that is definitely on the players. But as we alluded to at the beginning of the podcast, if you train a certain way, if you train a certain game plan and a certain style, you can't flick the switch. You don't have enough muscle memory and enough intuition to be able to put yourself in the right position and make the right moves and look in the right areas at the right times to be able to make that sort of shift in your game style. It's just not going to happen.
Great.
All right. Well, so big man for AFC coach next year. I'll happily run that ticket.
Milk could be playing centre, mate. I can tell you that much.
That's all right. Could be worse. Could be A and B. Look, it's not all doom and gloom. We're still in the finals. Well, not in the finals yet. We've got to win a wild card. But it's terribly disappointing, and for people that are listening to the podcast on demand, we're sorry if this is a bit of a negative cast, but it's so deflating, isn't it? It's so deflating after the promise of last year, and we went out in straight sets, and okay, it's a young side, and we're still learning. But to throw up this slop this year, this has been terribly disappointing. We've had a couple of really good efforts, but it's overall, it's extremely underwhelming, and I feel the team as a whole has gone backward this year quite substantially.
Yeah, it's weird because we've won a lot more games than we've lost, but I feel like we've had more bad than good overall this year. The highlights have been great, like the Sydney win, the Geelong win, the Bulldogs win.
Yeah.
And of course the showdown win. We didn't play particularly well, but the way in which it finished was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's just like a lot of games this year where maybe we didn't maybe we played well in little bursts, but we didn't get the job done because we just didn't play well for long enough. And that's become a bit of a theme in this team. Even on Friday night, we did play well at times. We had little moments in the game where we looked like a good team, but
definitely
we're not good enough to be able to sustain that for a long enough time where you actually win those games. Where we just tease and stuff, but then we always give the opposition a sniff. And that was the case on Friday. So it is frustrating to watch us. I mean, I'll give a little shout out to McAndrew. I thought he was good again against the dual ruck setup against Freo, which is never easy. I know he dropped that mark, but he was pretty good. Cookie, I thought actually had a pretty good game against tough oppo. To kick the 2 goals and do what he did.
Went disappearing for a little while, but came back.
Yeah, it is admittedly it's sort of part of the gig though, when you play that wing role. And
Dan Curtin, I thought, was disappointing.
Oh, his first quarter was great.
Yeah, but after that, it was nothing.
That's been the case a few weeks now.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the lack of a, pre-season because, of that knee injury. Maybe he's
possibly
not able to sustain it.
He did look a bit gassed at times, like hard to get off the mark at times when he was chasing.
Yeah, and Archie's another one who fell out of the game after a pretty positive start. So, these guys, who have had a lot of injuries, then just a lot of them aren't able to just keep it up. But yeah,
that's a move I would have made. That's a move I would have made, big man. I would have given Archie a run off halfback when we were struggling to get it out. Like Callum's not a bad leg. It just felt like we needed a good leg out the back. I would have actually even swapped Hugo for him for a little while and just see what happens.
Potentially. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for changing things up if they're not working, and that was clearly a big issue for us. And it was not the only issue. The midfield was a big problem as well, but
yeah,
we got, the problem is we don't have the cattle, and the cattle we do have didn't get the job done in the guts. And I mean, look, Sarong, Brayshaw, Young, Bolton, great players, Jackson as well, in the midfield. So you're always going to be up against it, but we had too many guys lowered their colours in there on Friday night.
All right, well, mate, we might wrap it up there. A bit of a somber finish. We've got essentially a dead rubber against GWS next week, although permutations could still have us finish 6th, although I highly doubt it. So it looks like 7th, and it looks like Carlton, doesn't it, at this stage?
Well, Freo don't really have a reason to win next week. Whereas if Carlton win, they get a wild card against Collingwood at the MCG, which they may prefer to than us at the Adelaide Oval, which has been a bit of an issue for them. Not that I really think that too far ahead, but I think there's a chance they do get the job done against Freo next week, which would mean that we play the Bulldogs. But like I said, I don't think you got to be careful of these things. Sometimes the team that you want to play is actually the team you don't end up wanting to play because they have that element of surprise. Everyone's pumping up Carlton at the moment, but chances are they just hit a brick wall, like I said, and all of a sudden, when we saw this with Richmond back in 2014, they came barnstorming home in the back half of the year. Yeah, and they made the elimination final against Port, and they got absolutely towed up because they had spent all their tickets just getting to that point. So I wouldn't look too much into the actual individual matchups, but you're right. 7th does look like the likely spot. 6th would rely on Melbourne getting beaten by the Bulldogs, and Bont's still sore apparently with that Achilles, and they're playing the MCG, I'm pretty sure, which is the D's love it there, and Bulldogs play a lot better at Marvel, so I can't see that happening. And it's not like any of the other results have gone our way, mate, so why start now?
No, and to be fair, we don't deserve it, so it is what it is. But of course, we will be back with Macca on Tuesday night for Tuesday Night Live. It will be good to welcome him back into the fold. And then you and I will have a 10-minute podcast next weekend reviewing the GWS game.
Well, look.
Because that's about all that needs to be spent on it.
It is a dead rubber. I hope the boys hopefully they have a bit of fun and they can get some guys back in form. So that's the big thing to come out of it. If we can get some guys feeling good about their footy again, that's going to be pretty important going into the wild card, because based on the last 2 games, there's be a lot of guys that would feel like they're not in good form at all.
Could be the most bruise-free game of football ever played.
I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure the players would be too, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just quickly, I know you were talking about changes and stuff, but I just think that I would love to see just something change a little bit. I know they're going to go back to the well with Neil Bullen, and Miller is probably back from that hamstring, based on what Nick said. I am worried that Nank's going to get dropped. He didn't play particularly well, and he looked like someone who was still dealing with that soreness, so that he just looked a bit hesitant and out of sorts.
Yeah,
which is a real shame, because I want him in the team. But with Miller coming back in, and they don't want to drop Laird, so who else makes way?
I think Hugo. But I will say that I think Hugo get dropped. To be honest,
maybe it's probably the only, which I don't agree with particularly either. But
no, I don't know either. But I think that might be.
Yeah, I'd still rather Nank. But I mean, it's a long shot now because it's the last game of the season. He hasn't played all year, but I would give Sid a go. I really would.
Yeah, I would too.
If it's up to me, I'd drop Peatling and bring Sid in just to see what he can do. And I mean, if it's going to be a bruise-free game, then maybe it's a good way to get him involved and get his hands to the footy. And he's been pretty consistent in the last few weeks in the sample. He hasn't put up massive numbers, but 20 touches and a goal again, 6 or 7 clearances. Like he's definitely building up his consistency. Why not just see if he can give us something, and a little bit of a spark, a bit of a wild card going into the wild card, if that makes sense.
Well, I think it'd be good management if we've got players with niggles, and we've got a couple of players that we need to get a game into just in case we need them. Sid's one of those. Charlie Edwards is another one of those. Oscar Ryan is another one of those. Even Nick Murray, if fit, probably needs to come in my opinion. So, there should be some changes. If they're managing the squad, give a few blokes a rest, give a few blokes a run at AFL level, even though it'll probably be fairly bruise-free, just in case they are called upon over the next few weeks. Just in case. It's not just about changing things up, it's about making sure you've got blokes ready to go if you need them.
Yeah.
Laird out for Ryan is an obvious one. Like, Laird needs to be out.
It's obvious to us, but we're not the selectors.
We aren't. And on that note, we'd better bugger off, because we've kept people long enough lamenting. But thanks everyone who's joined us both on YouTube and on Discord. Thanks also to the people who listen to us and watch us during the week on demand. If you do like what you hear and you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing on YouTube and giving us a like. It does help us get the podcast in front of more people, big man, and that's not a bad thing. More people need to hear your voice, mate. I would have thought.
Not sure about that.
I'm just providing a platform for your voice, mate. That's all I'm doing.
I think they'd rather hear JT Grew's voice, mate, with that mic quality. And
why don't we just hit go and then sit back and JT can just carry it through? We might do that next week.
Could do worse, mate.
JT, you're doing the podcast by yourself next week.
Golden tonsils himself.
I'm just trying to think if... I don't even think Brownie will be back by then either. So, anyway, we'll work it out. Until then, be good, stay safe. We'll see you on Tuesday night. Good night, everyone.
All right, guys.